Should you build speed boots or attack boots on Phainon? And how much speed do you need on his supports for either build? I've tested every single combination to figure out what the ideal speed breakpoints are for Phainon and his teammates. And after this video, you'll understand exactly what you need to build on Phainon and his supports. First things first, run a crit body, a damage percent orb, and an attack rope. You can use an attack orb if it has better substats. These things stay the same no matter what, and he has the new tailor-made Wave Strider relic set made just for him. For planet ornaments, he also has a new set coming, but the difference between it and Rudolent is honestly marginal. Substats matter most. The only part of Phainon's build that's up for debate is his boots. The thing is, it actually has nothing to do with Phainon reaching a specific speed breakpoint. It's actually about his supports reaching specific speed breakpoints. Let me explain. What is the main goal with Phainon's gameplay? What are you specifically building for? For example, Xiao Chou's build goal is to take as many turns as possible in an Acheron team. Casterus's build goal is to have no speed in her stats. Jing Yuan's build goal is to be just slightly faster than Sunday. The way you build a character's speed depends on what their goal is within a cycle. Phainon's goal is simple. He wants to take 4 of his ultimate actions within the first wave. He gets 8 actions total within his ultimate, each one costing 23 to 25 action value, depending on whether or not you have his signature light cone. Action value is the number on the cycle bar. I won't over-explain it for fear of overcomplicating it for you, so we'll just keep this simple. Essentially, Phainon needs to take 4 actions during the first wave, so that when he enters the second wave of enemies, he only has 4 out of 8 of his actions left. If Phainon enters the second wave with more than 4 actions left, meaning he killed the first wave in only 3 actions, then he will be taking too many turns during the second wave, thus pushing his team out of the cycle when he exits his ultimate. Yes, Phainon gets punished if he clears the first wave too fast. Of course, this won't matter if he just clears the entire fight in just one ultimate, but unless your Phainon is super well invested, we're going to be operating under the assumption that Phainon is going to require 2 ultimates, which is always going to be the case once Memory of Chaos stops being tailor-made for scenarios that favor him, aka if you still want to be using him in like 6 months. So we've established the main goal of Phainon's build path. He needs 4 turns in the first wave and 4 turns in the second wave, all within the first cycle. In order to achieve this, he needs to activate his ultimate halfway during the first cycle. To be more specific, he needs to activate his ult with around 76 action value remaining if he doesn't have his signature light cone, which reduces to 68 action value remaining if he does have his signature light cone. But don't worry about these action value numbers. I'm just putting those there for the nerds, but I will explain in simple terms what the speed breakpoints are for you to reach these action value thresholds without you needing to rack your head around what any of it really means. As of his current team building, Phainon ideally wants to always activate his ultimate right after Branya's skill so that he can retain her buff. Thus, this means it's not necessarily Phainon's speed that needs to meet these action value thresholds, it's Branya's speed that we're building around. She's the one who needs to make sure Phainon gets his ultimate in time to get his 4 turns within the first wave. However, the reason you're building for this threshold to begin with is because you also want to build your supports with enough speed so they can stay within the first cycle after Phainon exits his first ultimate. This is because the only way for Phainon to clear as quickly as possible is if his supports still have enough action value to get him a second ultimate within the very same cycle where he exits his first ultimate. This makes Phainon's build paths more tricky, not for him, but specifically for his supports, and specifically for Sunday and Branya. To be clear, if you aren't using Sunday, then obviously you can only focus on Branya's speed, and that's what matters most. And if you aren't using Branya, then these strict speed requirements are less important anyway, because Phainon can activate his ultimate whenever he wants without Branya. The reason this build guide is focused on Branya's speed tuning is because Branya forces Phainon into a specific rotation where he needs to ult right after her skill. I'll touch on how to build his other supports at the end, but first off, we need to discuss the different builds and rotations for Sunday and Branya, Phainon's best support duo. There are 2 ways to play Sunday and Branya, the 1-turn rotation or the 2-turn rotation. Basically, they can either take only 1 turn to charge Phainon's ultimate, or they can take 2 turns to charge it, and there are pros and cons to both. Let's start with the 1-turn rotation, since it's a bit more straightforward. For starters, if Branya is on a classic 134 speed build, then that is the exact speed breakpoint for Phainon to activate his ultimate and get those 4 turns in the first wave, even without his signature light cone. If you're running Branya with only 134 speed, then Phainon can pretty easily run speed boots to take a turn before her and before Sunday. In fact, with his light cone, all he needs is speed boots. He doesn't need any speed substats. If you don't have his light cone, then he will need some speed substats to reach 136 speed, while Sunday is 135 and Branya is 134 for proper rotation. This is a fairly easy rotation to build for, with generally low speed requirements, and speed boots Phainon guarantees he'll have enough ultimate stacks regardless of what team you're running him with due to how many turns he's able to take. You can run Branya and Sunday on Sacerdos with whatever buffing planar ornaments you want. This rotation gives a total of 12 core flame stacks without even accounting for a third harmony or enemy RNG. However, even though Speed Boots Phainon allows his lower speed supports to still give him his 4 actions in the first wave, remember, we also have a second goal. We need our supports to still be in the first cycle after Phainon exits his first ultimate. If Phainon exits his ultimate and his supports are too slow, they'll be pushed back 1 cycle, thus making it impossible to 0 cycle. Even if you don't care about 0 cycling, getting Phainon's second ultimate within the 0 cycle is still always more beneficial. And if Bronya is at 134 speed, she is not going to be able to stay in the cycle when Phainon exits his first ultimate. She'll be pushed down by 1 cycle, unless you can get a double Dance 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 proc despite your supports taking such little turns. This means a Phainon on speed boots will essentially never be able to clear faster than hyperspeed supports. I will note that if you have Dance Dance Dance, you can actually manage to get 5 actions in the first wave instead of 4. If you purposefully make your Phainon clear the first wave slower so that he only has 3 actions remaining when he enters the second wave, he'll take less action value in his ultimate on the second wave, and then your supports actually will be able to still make it into the cycle despite being on 134 speed. However, this does require controlling how much damage you do. If you don't care about hyper optimizing, then Speed Boots Phainon is convenient because it means you don't have to change your Bronya or Sunday's speed if they're also speed tuned at the 134 breakpoint for your other DPS characters. This is the one scenario where I would recommend Speed Boots on Phainon if you just don't want to refarm a new build for your Sunday and Bronya. However, in an optimal Phainon team, he's going to want a completely different build for Sunday and Bronya. Again, since the speed breakpoint is actually all about Bronya's build and not Phainon's, we want to discuss her speed. We've already covered how easy it is for Bronya to give Phainon his required 4 turns within the first wave. She can do it even on the standard 134 speed build, but the harder part is giving Bronya enough speed to remain in the first cycle after Phainon exits his first ultimate. For starters, Phainon runs attack boots in the coming rotations we'll be discussing. His supports will be building a high amount of speed in order to manage getting him his second ultimate in the same cycle where he exits his first ultimate. So it's not worth trying to build Phainon to match their speed. He's on attack boots with no speed substats needed. The 1 turn rotation for hyperspeed Bronya is pretty straightforward. Honestly, as long as Bronya and Sunday are as fast as possible, with upwards of 150 to 160 speed, with Sunday slightly faster than Bronya, they'll be able to give Phainon his 4 turns in the first wave, and they'll also still make it into the first cycle when he exits his first ultimate. Adding external action advance sources like Dance Dance Dance, Von Whack, or Eagle Set are pretty optional if you want to squeeze out even more action value out of them, but not necessary for this rotation, where the supports only need to take 1 turn. The benefit to this 1 turn rotation is that it can actually give Phainon more than 4 turns in the first wave, so if he needs more turns to kill the first wave, then it's nice. And just like I explained before, he can even purposefully kill the first wave slower to save action value in the second wave, as long as it all happens within the first cycle still. This is also the most convenient build in rotation if your Phainon can just kill everything in 1 ultimate, and thus doesn't care about specific speed tuning to optimize the second ultimate. The downside is that it's more skill point intensive, and it can rely on enemy RNG to give Phainon enough stacks for his ultimate, depending on the team you're playing, like if you're trying to use Tribute or Cypher who don't give Phainon any stacks. This rotation only gives Phainon 10 Core Flame stacks, without accounting for a third harmony or enemy RNG. Keep in mind that Phainon will not be killing things in 1 ultimate for most E0 Phainons after Hoyo stops catering to him in the next few months, which is what I'm trying to prepare you for. At least, not with this team. Things can always change with future teammates, but this is a build guide for the current Phainon. Now, we've discussed the convenient and easy builds, but the rotation where external action advance sources become mandatory, such as Dance 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 and Von Whack in Eagle Set, is when you're aiming for the 2-turn support rotation. So, what are the benefits of the 2-turn support rotation? First off, your supports get more energy when they're able to act twice, meaning they have a better chance of getting another ultimate off after Phainon's first ultimate. Secondly is skill point economy. What you choose to do with your SP is a lot more flexible when your supports are taking 2 turns. Third off is that it's easier to build up Phainon's stacks. 1-turn rotations sometimes rely on RNG enemy attacks to get Phainon's ultimate in time, depending on the team. The 2-turn rotation doesn't rely on RNG, and it'll generally give you more overflow stacks for Phainon, so that stacking up his second ultimate is easier as well. Sounds like only upsides, right? Well, yes. The downside is that it's more difficult to build. So how do we achieve the 2-turn rotation? How are we managing to give Phainon supports 2 turns while still letting him achieve 4 turns within the first wave? This is where the reliance on DDD, Von Whack, and the Eagle Set come into play. Additionally, Phainon needs his signature light cone so that his turns and his ultimate don't take up too much action value. If you don't have his signature light cone, then his supports will not be able to make it inside of the cycle after he exits his first ultimate without having impossible speed requirements or 2 Dance 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 procs, which is technically technically possible, but just know that the 2-turn rotation is much harder for Phainon if he has no signature light cone, which is part of why his signature light cone is still a higher priority than his E1 unless you're able to go all the way to his E2, in which case his E2 is the highest priority. Maybe stick to the 1-turn rotation if you're using the Herda Shop light cone, which is his best free option. Now, if you do have his signature light cone, then it unlocks this 2-turn rotation. So let's talk about the build requirements. First off, let's talk about what action advancing tools we're relying on. The Von Whack Planar Ornament will give Bronya and Sunday a 40% action advance immediately upon entering the first wave. The Eagle Relic set advances your character by 25% upon using their ultimate, and Dance 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 advances the entire team by 16 to 24% when the equipping character uses their ultimate. Von Whack is the most important piece of the puzzle for your supports, because it gives the most action advance out of anything else available. 40% action advance reduces the speed requirements to achieve the 2-turn rotation by so much. So if you aren't going to commit to farming or crafting Von Whack pieces with speed, then this playstyle might not be for you. So long as Bronya has Von Whack, she unlocks a new playstyle during the 2-turn rotation, where she opens with a basic attack. This is because Bronya's basic attack action advances her by an additional 30%, and it basically gets rid of the need to run Eagle Set on her. Yes, you heard me right, you don't need to farm the Eagle Set for Bronya if you have Von Whack on her. She can instead use her basic attack rotation, which is more forgiving on the skill points, and you'll still get enough stacks for Phainon's ultimate, because your other supports, like Sunday, are also taking 2 turns in this rotation, meaning double the amount of turns to stack Phainon's ultimate. You can see the rotation play out in this clip. Pretend Argenti is Phainon. Sunday and Bronya get to take 2 actions, which makes stacking Phainon's ultimate effortless, because that's more turns, and it's also easier on skill points, because Bronya opens with a basic attack. Additionally, Sunday gets the energy of a second skill, whereas in 1-turn rotations, he gets no energy after his ultimate. This rotation gives Phainon a total of 13 Core Flame stacks without accounting for a 3rd Harmony or enemy RNG, the most Core Flame stacks out of any of the other rotations or builds. In order to achieve 2 turns and enough action value to give Phainon his 4 turns within the first wave, Bronya will need around 157 speed. But again, she can run Sacerdos to help with this. A Bronya with 157 speed using Von Whack and starting the rotation with her basic attack will be able to get Phainon his 4 turns within the first wave, and she will just barely make it into the same cycle after Phainon's first ultimate ends to bring Phainon back up in the second wave, which is the easiest possible way to zero cycle in 2 ultimates. The difficulty of this build is what it does to Sunday. I said he's taking 2 turns in this rotation, but again, this requires the proper build on him. Unlike Bronya, Sunday does need the Eagle set for the 2-turn rotation, because he doesn't have a self-action advance built into his kit like Bronya's basic attack. If you don't use the Eagle set on Sunday, then he will end up behind Bronya, which you never want. He needs Eagle set to keep himself ahead of Bronya since she's action advancing herself with her basic attack. It goes without saying that he also needs Von Whack to keep up with Bronya. In addition, the action advance of the Eagle set is lower than the action advance on Bronya's basic attack. This means that in these rotations, Sunday needs to be roughly 7 to 8 speed above Bronya to still take his second turn before her. And remember, we always want Bronya to go last so that Phainon can retain her skill buff in his ultimate. Since Bronya's speed breakpoint was 157, that would mean Sunday would need around 164 to 165 speed on the Eagle set, which is pretty damn hard to achieve. Now, obviously these speed requirements can be very challenging, but fret not, for there are ways to alleviate this speed requirement on both of them. And that way is called Dance Dance Dance, everyone's favorite light cone that Hoyo is terrified to rerun. You can run Dance 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 on the 3rd Harmony character in the team, or Bronya herself can hold it. The action advance of an S5 Dance 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 reduces Bronya's speed requirement in this rotation to 151, which means Sunday's speed requirement becomes 158 to 159, since he needs to stay 7 to 8 speed above her. These speed requirements could still be challenging for some players, since the Eagle set and Von Whack don't give any speed stats for Sunday, but it's certainly more manageable than doing this without Dance Dance Dance. If your 3rd Harmony unit is Ruan Mei, then her 10% speed buff will help alleviate these speed requirements a lot, by about 10 speed. Not to mention Ruan Mei can be a great holder of Dance 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 as well. Now, I said Phainon without his light cone struggles too much to do the 2-turn rotation, but if you want to do it anyway, the speed requirement to get Phainon his mandatory 4 turns in the first wave is Bronya at 143 and Sunday at 151, still with Von Whack on both and Eagle set on Sunday. Like I said before, they can't make it into the first cycle after Phainon exits his first ultimate, because Phainon just takes up too much action value without his signature light cone. They would need like a Tingyan with Dance 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 to get attacked by enemies enough to where she gets a second Dance 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 proc in the second wave, which actually is possible, so it is technically doable without Phainon's signature. It's just pretty RNG reliant. As for Sunday and Bronya's light cones, if you have Sunday's light cone, you always use that on him. If you don't have it, then you would assume to use Bronya's light cone, right? Nope. The only time you would use Bronya's signature on Sunday is if you aren't using Bronya. But if you're using both Sunday and Bronya, then Sunday's best free-to-play option is actually Dreamville Adventure. This is because Phainon always wants to use his ultimate after Bronya's turn, meaning he won't be buffed by Bronya's signature or past and future if you use these on Sunday, because Phainon isn't ulting after Sunday's turn. rotation. Dreamville Adventure is the best way for Sunday to buff Phainon outside of Sunday's turn as far as free-to-play Lightguns go. For Bronya, her signature is the priority, with Past and Future being her free-to-play alternative. There are some scenarios where if you need Dance Dance Dance, you can also use that on either her or Sunday if your third Harmony isn't using it, or obviously if you're using Remembrance Trailblazer, who can't use Dance Dance Dance. As for how you build other supports in Phainon's team, you don't have to do anything special for them. Make characters like Tingyan and RMC as fast as possible. Build Robin and Tribby how you normally would. Some special build tips I'll add is that you can use the Passerby set on characters like Tingyan and RMC to alleviate skill point requirements. You can also use the 3-star Light Cone Shadowburn on RMC to alleviate skill points and to make sure Mem gets enough charge to advance Phainon at the right time. If RMC doesn't have Shadowburn when played with Sunday and Bronya, Mem's first action advance can get wasted and you'll lose out on Phainon's stacks. But Shadowburn gives energy, which helps Mem action advance Phainon at the correct time. And remember, if Sunday and Bronya are doing the 2-turn rotation, then the third Harmony unit is likely also taking 2 turns in order to build up more energy and skill points. Unless it's Robin or Tribby, who probably won't be taking more than 1 turn. With Robin, there's a special technique where you save her ultimate until right before Phainon uses his ultimate. So she action advances Sunday and Bronya to be ready to immediately take action after Phainon exits his first ultimate. There's a showcase of this strategy in the description of this video that uses Speed Boots Phainon as an example, but Phainon can also do this exact same strategy perfectly well using the 2-turn hyperspeed supports rotation. With Sparkle, you speed tune her to go in between Sunday and Bronya. Her action advance will be completely useless, but she's not there for her action advance to actually do anything. She's only there for her skill point generation, her ability to generate stacks for Phainon's ultimate, and for her crit damage buff. And also she can hold Dance Dance Dance. By putting her in between Sunday and Bronya, we can make sure her crit damage buff stays on Phainon by purposefully making her 50% action advance useless. And like I said near the start of this video, if you don't have Sunday, then just focus on Bronya's speed tuning that I covered in this video. Her part is what matters most anyway. And if you aren't using Bronya, then ideally you still want Sunday to be hitting similar speed breakpoints as we discussed here, since the goal of giving Phainon 4 turns in the first wave and letting the supports remain in the first cycle when Phainon exits his first ultimate are all still the same, regardless of which supports you're using. You just have a bit more flexibility in when you activate Phainon's ultimate if you're not using Bronya, because Bronya is no longer forcing him to do it at a specific time. In general, for the time being, with our current supports, I would still recommend to run Sunday plus Bronya, and I would recommend to use attack boots on Phainon while using the 2-turn rotation for his supports because of how it eases up skill point usage, gives Sunday more energy, and makes stacking Phainon's ultimate effortless no matter who the third Harmony is, even someone like Tribby or Cypher who give no stacks. It's just all around the most consistent rotation, but harder to build because of requiring Von Whack plus relatively high speed requirements on Sunday with Eagle Set. So I know that was a lot to cover, like a lot to cover, but we made it through. You made it through. Thank you so much if you sat through this whole thing. It was honestly super complicated trying to break down how I was going to explain it all. You don't need to think too hard about the specific action value stuff. Just look at the speed breakpoints for the specific goals you're trying to achieve with your Phainon and start building from there. If you aren't interested in farming or crafting Von Whack or Eagle Set, that's fair. If you aren't interested in dealing with Bronya's speed requirements because Girl is probably getting replaced very soon anyway, that's also fair. But if you do want to know the speed requirements to maximize Phainon with his best in slot supports on release, then this would be the way to do so. To summarize, if you don't want to change your Sunday and Bronya from being speed tuned with characters like Mighty or Anaxa, then you can just run speed boots on Phainon for the convenience. If you'd like to run what's most optimal for Phainon, then run attack boots on Phainon and choose a 1-turn or 2-turn rotation for Sunday and or Bronya, depending on your willingness to speed tune them with Von Whack and Eagle Set and your access to Dance 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 on your third Harmony unit. For a 1-turn rotation, Sunday and Bronya just need to be over 150 speed using whatever relics and planers you want, as long as Sunday is faster than Bronya. For a 2-turn rotation, look at this table to know what to build. Remember, if you don't have Phainon's Light Cone, then the speed requirement looks lower simply because you're giving up on being able to get a second ultimate within the 0 cycle. And these are the pros of a 1-turn rotation versus 2-turn rotation. Let me put it like this. A 1-turn rotation is more convenient to build. A 2-turn rotation is more convenient to play. Both rotations will probably be shaken up once Cerydra releases, so legitimately don't stress too hard about it unless you plan on skipping her. Phew, we're done. We're finally done. Thank you so much for watching. You don't even know how complicated it was for me to try and write this all out in a way that wouldn't be too convoluted. It probably still ended up being convoluted, but I hope you learned something along the way nevertheless. If you did, or if you just found the video enjoyable, then consider liking the video. Comment down below which build you're going to use after watching this video. If you're just waiting for Cerydra to see how much she changes the optimal build, you're very valid. There's still more Phainon content on the way, and there will definitely be tons of Cerydra content, so consider subscribing to the channel if you'd like to see more content like this. I stream over on Twitch and post over on Twitter, so follow me on those platforms to keep up with me. Best of luck to all of us in our Phainon pulls and relic grinding. Until next time!